Well, disinformation is an attempt to confuse and devise our publics. It's a way not to convince people, but to confuse them and to undermine our democratic institutions and processes. What we've seen, certainly in terms of NATO, is that disinformation has always been with us. NATO and NATO allies have always been the target of disinformation from various state actors, but now increasingly from non-state actors. And in fact, disinformation is nothing new. I mean, you could say that the Trojan horse, in a way, was a sort of disinformation. It's a form of deception and an attempt to achieve political aims by manipulating information. What we have seen, though, is that in particular since 2014, when it comes to NATO, we've seen an industrial level increase in disinformation and propaganda directed at NATO itself. And that happened at the same time, and it was related to Russia's aggressive actions against Ukraine, the illegal annexation of Crimea, and the continued destabilization of eastern Ukraine. So from 2014 onwards, we have seen a massive increase in disinformation directed at NATO. What we are seeing now, in particular since 2020 and the COVID pandemic, we've also seen an increase in Chinese disinformation and disinformation by other state and non-state actors. And sometimes we see a convergence, for instance, between Russian and Chinese disinformation narratives about NATO. Some of it is opportunistic. Some of it may indicate a greater convergence in the intent of Russia and China, for instance, to counter the international rules-based order and the values on which NATO is founded. Speaking on behalf of NATO, our aim is not to counter disinformation with disinformation or propaganda with propaganda, because in a way that would only serve to confirm the narrative, the false narrative that is out there, that there is no difference between truth and lies. It all depends on the eye of the beholder, and there's a grey zone between facts and lies. So I think it's really important that our communications is fact-based, it's credible, and that we also work together with other international actors, whether it's international organizations like the European Union, like the United Nations, or NGOs, and obviously the governments of our own allies, to ensure that what we say and what we do is aligned and is based on our values.